Well, good evening. I welcome you to the February 15th, 2022 meeting of the Board of Commissioners Workshop. We welcome all of you here, and if you will join by standing with me, we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance and the invocation. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Let us pray. Almighty God, we heard the words under God. We're all under God. Here in this town, here in this fine county, in our state, in our nation, and in the world that you've given us to live in. Bless us, Lord, in our life experience, in the ways that we strive to make that life experience good for all people. Amen. Okay, commissioners, we are all present, and the agenda is before you. Is there a motion regarding approval of the agenda?
I make a motion that we approve the agenda.
All in favor of that, please raise your right hand. Unanimous, Madam Clerk. Thank you. All right, the first is a presentation from Mr. Ragland and Mr. Cutts. We have authors in our presence, and I understand on this Friday at 1:30 you're going to have a book signing or a presentation in the library next door. So why don't you come forward and give us a word or two.
Mayor, commissioners, citizens of Andrew, and audience. My name is Jimmy Ragland, longtime resident of Andrew, and this is my cousin and co-author, William Carnell Cutts. We both grew up on West Church Street, and for the last 15 to 20 years, he, myself, and Walter Cheek, through genealogy, have been talking about doing some history for African Americans in the Andrew community. So one day we decided, we were talking and got it with James Howerton, and we all decided, let's do it. So we got together and put forth this this publication called Andrew from an African American Experience. And it basically talks about some of the things about Andrew, has some of the history of Andrew, families of African American descent, things about the town of Andrew that were here that are not here now, and some things, and we tried to capture some of the history of Andrew now that won't be here 10 years from now.
Hear you.
And there's a picture in this book of the rescue building, and the rescue building is not there now. You captured a picture of what used to be the old Bird hardware store down there on the corner. It's been renovated since we wrote this and took this picture. So it's a tremendous amount of pictures, and it has a lot of stories and history, and it talks about some of the achievements of members of the African American community, history, military personnel, the Andrew Cemetery, and it has a collection of photographs of people who were members of this community and has been all their life. Carnell and I grew up on West Church Street. Walter Cheek, one of the other authors, he grew up on Church Street. James Howerton, he grew up on West Broad Street down there by Black River Road Church beside the Kmart. And so we got together and we've been doing genealogy for a while, and so we pooled our information to try to come up with this book. Our initial intent with this was to be 180 pages. But after we got into it, it turned out to be 312. And we decided to cut it off at 312 because we're getting beyond our budget. But I think it's a pretty good publication, and we've been getting very good reviews from people who've read it and some said they can't put it down, and one said it'll make you cry. And one person says it just brings back memory, things that they've forgotten about Andrew. And it stirs up memories in the mind that people just long forgotten and just hadn't thought about. And so we appreciate you allowing us to be here to make this presentation and let them know that this publication exists. And we hope people enjoyed it. People who have purchased it and enjoyed it. We sent books to California, Arizona, Washington, Indiana, Texas, Virginia.
Sent one to Kuwait last week.
And you sent one to Kuwait last week. And so we appreciate being able to make this available to the public.
Well, thank you so much, Mr. Ragland, Mr. Cutts. Appreciate your effort and appreciate you being with us tonight.
Okay.
Okay, let's give them a hand.
Mr. Ragland, where can we get that book?
Pardon?
Where can we get that book at?
Well, we just have them with us, housing them right now. We purchased, Miss Kiva can let you know.
You're going to be at the library at 1:30 p.m. on this Friday.
On Friday.
Okay, next door here. Okay,
We will have some books with us.
right on. All right, we move into old business. The first thing is the Harnett County reappraisal presentation. I see you have arrived.
Well, we're over on this side. I'm not exactly sure who this group is, but I'm Bill Tyson with the Harnett County Tax Department. We appreciate Mayor and Commissioners that you allow us to be a part of your
Won't you
meeting.
come up to the microphone so we can capture you for the online people?
Okay, there we go. Bill Tyson, Harnett County Tax Department. We appreciate you having us tonight. This is the third in one of our in-person public meetings, giving some explanation about the reappraisal and trying to get some information out for you. We have several people with us tonight. Christine Wallace, our Assistant Tax Administrator, is here with us. Mr. Brent Trout, maybe some of you have met him and maybe not. Our new county manager is with us tonight as well. And the person who's going to do the heavy lifting tonight is Ryan Vinson of Vinson Valuations. Their particular outfit has been doing the reappraisal process for us, and he's going to explain what we're doing, why we're doing it, that sort of thing, and we'll be glad to answer any questions that you may have.
Well, I see you brought Mr. Witherspoon from the County Commission. Welcome.
I knew y'all all knew who he was, so he needed no further introduction, I don't think.
Thank you, guys. Make sure this works here. Perfect. Okay. So like Bill said, my name is Ryan Vincent. I own a company called Vincent Valuations. We do reappraisal work all across the state. Somebody who's actually a resident of Andrew, one of my employees, Jeff, is here with us today also. He's been working on this project since the onset of it. So like Bill said, we're going to talk a little bit about why we do reappraisal, how we do reappraisal. We're going to show some changes that we're seeing in the marketplace, and then we're going to talk about what's next with the notices and the appeal process. So why do we do reappraisal, and what is it? So reappraisal is the process in which we go through all the properties in the county and we reappraise them for tax purposes based on current market value as of a particular day. And in this case of Harnett County, that particular day is January 1st, 2022. Now, real property includes all of the land and buildings that are permanently affixed to it. It does not include any personal property like boats, campers, cars and trucks, things like that. Those are reappraised on an annual basis. So why do we do reappraisal? So first off, the state tells us we have to do one at least every 8 years. Harnett County's last reappraisal was 2017. So this time we're on a 5-year cycle, and the State Department of Revenue has recommended to counties to go to a 4-year cycle. And what this does is it distributes the tax burden equally amongst all property owners based on what they own. So we touched a second ago about market value. Excuse me. So market value is the most probable price that a willing buyer and willing seller would pay in the marketplace. So what we do is we look at sales. So these sales are what we would consider valid sales. We don't consider sales transactions, say, you were to deed a piece of your land to your children to build a house on, or deed something to your husband or your wife or something. We don't consider those valid sales. Valid sales are things that are on the open market and everybody has the chance to purchase that property. Now, back when I first started, a valid sale would have to be considered on the market for 30 days. Obviously, the market's changed a little bit, and things don't sit on the market for 30 days. They might sit on the market for 3 hours before they go under contract.
Yeah.
But when we look at valid sales, we're looking at things that were listed on the open market and no unconventional financing or anything like that. Most important part of this piece is to remember that us at the tax office, we do not create market value. We're simply analyzing the actions of buyers and sellers in the marketplace to take a snapshot of market value as of that January 1st, 2022 date. So when will this occur? The reappraisal is effective January 1st, 2022. The new tax bills that will be affected by this will go out in the summer of 22, and we plan to mail change of value notices to all property owners in the county at the end of March. So a few basic steps of the reappraisal. The first one is the collection of the physical characteristics. So we started about 2.5 years ago going door to door to every property in Harnett County. We knocked on the door. If anybody was home, we asked them a few questions about their home. How many bedrooms, how many bathrooms, if you have a fireplace, a basement, any unfinished space, things like that. We walked around the house and verified all the measurements and dimensions of the property along with any outbuildings, and took photos of the properties. From there, that information was brought into the office. It was entered into the computer system. And from there, we started our sales analysis. So this is where we start looking at sales and building what we call valuation models to try to mimic the market. And we're looking at things like quality of construction, age, location, size, things that buyers and sellers are looking at in the market. And that helps us to get to our final major step of the reappraisal, is developing the schedule of values. So those are the models and rates and tables that we use to actually value the properties. Then once that's developed, we go through again and do a parcel by parcel review of the values of each property. So a couple things that are a little difficult for us sometimes because we don't go inside people's houses. If you have any unfinished area in your house, say you have a garage with an unfinished room above it, but let's say you have curtains up there. We might not know if that area is finished or unfinished. If you have a 2-story house, and let's say you have large cathedral ceilings in your living room area, that section's considered 1 story, but the rest of your house is 2-story. We might not know stuff like that unless we're notified of that, because again, we're looking at it from the outside unless we're requested to go inside. So one thing also to remember is that we're a little bit different from a fee appraisal. So if you purchase a house or refinance a house, a fee appraiser comes to your house and they walk through your house and they pull 5 specific comparables. In the tax office, we don't pull 5 comparables. Sometimes when the notices go out, folks call us and say, I'd like to see the 3 or 5 comparables used to value my house. Well, we don't use. One of the reasons we do that is we're responsible for approximately 69,000 pieces of property in the county that we have to value as of one particular day, and that's growing every single day. I heard a number today that there was something like 300 or 400 splits so far this year in the county, meaning new parcels that were created. So we're growing at a very rapid pace in the county. And we're responsible for valuing all of that as of one day, whereas a fee appraiser is responsible for valuing 1 house or 2 houses as of one particular day. And so we do it the same way that most counties do it throughout the state. So how do we know it's right? So one of the major tests we use is called the sales ratio. So what this does is it simply compares the assessed value to the sale price. And state law tells us that we have to assess properties in a reappraisal year as close to 100% as possible. And so what that means is if your house sells for $100,000, our value should be as close to $100,000 as possible using our models. So if your house is valued at 95 and it sells for 100, that means we're at a 95% ratio. We're 5% low. If your house is valued at 110,000 and it sells for 100, we're at a 1.1 ratio, or we're 10% high. So we try to be as close to 100% of market value as possible. So the next few slides, I think we have about 20 of these, are going to show changes throughout the county. So this presentation is directed countywide, not just at the individual towns. But what you're going to see is you're going to see a 2017 assessed value, and you're going to see a recent sale price and a recent sale date, and the percent change from that assessed value to the recent sale price. So the first one is in Lillington. It was assessed for $145. It sold in September for $235. That's an increase of 61%. Next one's in Lillington, was assessed for $176. Sold in November for $285. That's an increase of 61%. Next one in Lillington was assessed for $183. It sold in September for $289. That's an increase of 57%. And one thing that's important to remember here is this increase we're looking at is from 2017 to when it sold. So a lot of people think that this is a 1-year increase. This is an increase actually over a period of 5 years. So this one in Lillington was assessed for $103, sold in November for $199. That's an increase of 92%. This one here in Lillington was assessed for $93. It sold for $178, and that's an increase of 89%. Then we come over to Fuquay, and this one is actually a double sale or a resale. So this one first sold in 2020 for $305. It was assessed for $273, so that's an increase of 12%. But then it sold again a little over a year later for $425, and that's an increase of 55%. So you can see just in a period of a little over a year, this house went from one sale to another and went up over $100,000. When we pulled these sales, we tried to find stuff that wasn't renovated or fixed up. This is just purely market increases what we were looking for, and market changes. Next one in Fuquay was assessed for $242. It sold in November for $370, and that's an increase of 53%. Also in Fuquay, this one was assessed for $244, sold for $390. That's an increase of 60%. Last one we have in Fuquay was assessed for $201, sold in November for $420. That's an increase of 208%. Then we move to Anger. This one was assessed for $174, sold in the spring of last year, about a year ago, for $270. That's an increase of 55%. Also in Anger, this one was assessed for $148, sold in March for $194. That's an increase of 31%. Another one in Anger was assessed for $167, sold in June for $270. That's an increase of 61%. Then we move to Dunn. This one was assessed for $388, sold in November for $475. That's an increase of 22%. In Dunn also, this one was assessed for $146, sold in October for $225. That's an increase of 53%. Last one in Dunn was assessed for $177, sold in July for $289. That's an increase of 63%. Then we move to Barbecue. This one was assessed for $123, sold in June for $190. That's an increase of 53%. Also in Barbecue, this one was assessed for $185, sold in November for $267. That's an increase of 44%. This one was assessed for $312, sold for $402 in October. That's an increase of 29%. Then we move to Cameron. This one was assessed for $114, sold in September for $178. That's an increase of 56%. This one was assessed for $281, sold for $384. That's an increase of 37%. And this one sold almost on our reappraisal date. This one sold 12/30 of 21. Then in Anderson Creek, this one was assessed for $124, sold for $175. That's an increase of 40%. This one was assessed for $252, sold in June for $325. That's an increase of 28%. And just got a couple more here. This one in Irwin was assessed for $127, sold for $205. That's an increase of 61%. This one was assessed for $155, sold for $255. That one was an increase of 63%. We got three more. This one in Coates was assessed for $127, sold in July for $220. That's an increase of 72%. This one in Bun Level was assessed for $177, sold in July for $237. That's an increase of 34%. And the last one we have was in Broadway. This one was assessed for $160, sold in June for $214, and that's an increase of 33%. So what you saw here, what we wanted to demonstrate was different areas of the county, different sizes of houses, different locations, different ages, types of construction. So you can see the changes are anywhere from little change all the way up to 200+%, depending on where you are and what you own. So last couple things we're going to talk about. First thing is your tax bill. So that's everyone's big concern normally. At the tax office, we're responsible for 1/2 of the equation of the tax bill, and that's the assessed value or the taxable value. The County Board of Commissioners and the elected officials in the towns are responsible for the tax rate. The tax rate and the assessed value equal your tax bill. One question we get when the notices go out is, what's my tax bill going to be? The answer to that is we don't know. We're mailing notices in March. The tax rates aren't set for a few months later. So if folks call us up and say, how is this going to affect my tax bill? We don't have an answer for that. We won't have that answer until the tax rates are set by both the county and the other taxing jurisdictions. So you get your notice in the mail in about a month or so, and you look at the value on it and you say, well, that seems reasonable. You don't have to do anything. There's no action required on your part. If you have questions, we're going to walk you through a 3-step process. And a lot of this information that we covered tonight and some of the frequently asked questions are going to be printed right there on your notice. So the first thing is we ask you to do is review your information. So we've created some websites where you can go online and look at your property, look at your square footage, your bedrooms, your bathrooms, make sure everything seems correct on your data itself. If something seems incorrect, we're probably going to advise you to file an appeal, so we have documentation as to why we went through and made adjustments after the notices went out. So if you've reviewed your information and that seems correct, and you still have questions, we ask you to go online and look at comparable properties that sold. So we are also creating, the county GISs, we're working with them to create a sales website. So you can go online and you can search your property and you can look in the vicinity of your property and see what everybody's paid for houses in the last 2 years. There'll be filters on there where you can filter by square footage, you can filter by year built, and also location. So you can look at all the sales in your area. It doesn't necessarily mean that a sale that's on there is going to be comparable to yours, but we're putting all of the sales out there for the public to look at. So from here, you've reviewed your information, you've compared your property to like properties in your neighborhood or in your area, and you still feel you need to file an appeal. That's going to be able to be done a couple of ways. The first way is you can come in and fill out a paper form, either in the office or mail it to us. But the way we would prefer is to do it online. We're going to have an online appeals website where folks can go online and appeal their property right online, and it comes to us directly. So a couple of things about appeals. First, we're going to talk about a few reasons not to file an appeal. So one of the major reasons we get appeals is my property value went up 50%, or my property value went up 100%. That's not a valid reason to file an appeal. As we saw in the previous slides, markets change at different paces in different areas. Another reason, well, we understand with these changes, sometimes the affordability of the tax bill can be a major issue. That's not a reason to file a property tax appeal. There is programs that are given to us through the state that we administer through the tax office. We have a veterans program and an elderly and disabled program, and also a farm use program for deferral. And all those programs can help you save on property taxes if you qualify. Now, there is income restrictions, disability restrictions for the veterans exemptions, and acre and income restrictions for the farm use programs. But if there's any questions or you feel anybody may qualify, I think Christine has brought some brochures. Feel free to take those and give those out to anybody, or have them call our office and we'd be happy to walk them through if they qualify, and if they do, we'd be happy to help them get into one of those programs. And the last reason that we get to not necessarily file an appeal is the level of services provided. So you've decided to file an appeal. Now, what are we looking for in the tax office to help you with your appeal? We're looking for any documentation as to why you feel the value should be something different. And I say different because sometimes people appeal and want their value raised. Sometimes people want it lowered. What we're looking for is any sales comparisons that you may have. This could be sales off of our website that you feel reflect a different value for your property. This could be fee appraisals. There's a lot of sales going on, a lot of refinancing when the rates were low. So there's a lot of fee appraisals out there. If there's a fee appraisal that says a substantially different value, we'd ask you to submit that as evidence. Let's say your house maybe has some damage. Maybe your foundation is settling, you have a roof leak or something like that. We're looking for photos, documentation, contractor estimates, anything like that that may help us look at what that issue is doing to the value of your property. Let's say, for example, there might be some obsolescence to your house. Maybe you only have one full bathroom in your house and you have to walk through the master bedroom to get to that bathroom. That may be some obsolescence. If you feel that affects value, we may need some documentation of that. So that's what we're looking for when it comes to filing an appeal. We need some sort of documentation as to why you feel the value is different. So a couple things to recap. If you have any data errors on your house, we can address those fairly quickly, but we are going to look for some sort of documentation. We'll probably ask you to file an appeal on those. If you know anybody who may qualify for one of the tax relief programs, please have them reach out to us. We'd be happy to help them see if they qualify. An appeal should be based on value and not the change in value or the expected tax bill this summer. And the most important thing on this slide, the deadline is April 28th at 3 p.m. to file an appeal. Anything after that will be considered untimely and will go for the 2023 tax year. So a few important dates here. The effective date of the reappraisal is January 1st, 2022. So we're looking at information that was there as of January 1st. So we're not looking at sales that occur, say, today. We're looking at January 1st and backwards. We plan to mail notices on or about March 24th. The initial Board of Equalization appeal hearings will begin on April 7th. And the deadline to file appeals is April 28th at 3 p.m. And the first tax bills that will be impacted by this reappraisal will go out this summer. So again, the deadline is April 28th at 3 p.m. And that's all I got. And we'll take any questions.
Any questions from the board?
Mr. Vincent, is it Vincent?
Vincent.
Vincent. How do y'all do appraise new subdivisions?
So we look at the same way. We look at what folks are buying and selling for in these subdivisions. So new subdivisions are actually fairly easy to appraise because every property in there typically sells. Either the land sells and an owner builds the building, or a developer comes in, builds the subdivision, and sells everything off. So the more sales we have in an area, the actually easier it is to appraise. So we appraise new subdivisions the same way. We look at comparables and what are people buying and selling for similar homes.
And you do that as they're being built? Or do you wait till like 5 years, 6 years to do them?
No. So for example, if somebody builds a house, we go out there and appraise it as of January 1st of every single year.
Okay.
So this is a reappraisal year, so we're looking at every property in the county. But next year for 2023 is not going to be a reappraisal year. So what we do is we go out and we look at all the properties that have permits or construction work done that year, and state law tells us we have to appraise them as they sit as of January 1st. So let's say, for example, a house is only partially complete. It's 50% complete for the year. It's dried in. You might have rough plumbing and rough electrical, but there's no drywall and no finishes on it. We go out, we list that house as if it was 100% complete with the amenities it's going to have and the size it's going to have. Then we back that value down for as far along as it is. So let's just use round numbers. If that house is going to be worth $100,000 when it's complete and it's 50% complete, that person will get taxed on a value of $50,000 for that improvement for that year. Then next year when it's complete, they'll get taxed at the full value of that structure.
I guess one of my questions is if you're, and I know you do, if you ride up and down any street or road in the county, you see houses going up everywhere, subdivisions going up everywhere. You got 3 years left on the 8-year normal cycle that they do them on, correct? Why is the county pushing now to do it? I mean, I guess that would be a question that some of these people might would ask, why now?
That's not a question I can answer.
Who can answer that?
I'll answer what I know. And I've been in this particular chair for about 3 years now, so this would have predated what we're talking about tonight. But you saw in Ryan's presentation that we're required by state law to reappraise every 8 years. The last time, I think that probably the resolution that came to the commissioners would have been probably in 2016, something like that, because they had intended, my understanding, for it to go on a 4-year cycle after that. The reason being that if you're on an 8-year cycle, there's a lot of room for change in that, and at the end of 8 years, things are going to be a lot further along than if you measure every 4 years. And that way, you keep the cost of those things kind of under control the way the pricing and the way the sales are going. Ryan, is that?
Yeah, and also the Department of Revenue recommended, they put out reappraisal standards, I believe it was 2018, 2019, and they recommended that counties go to a 4-year cycle. That hasn't been changed at the General Assembly yet, but that's their recommendation. And that's to not necessarily capture value as it goes up or down, but just to redistribute the tax burden equally amongst folks based on what they own. Because as you saw, different areas change at different paces. So if somebody's value went up 50% and somebody else's value only went up 25, you might have a little bit of dispersion in the tax value there. And that's why reappraisals are done. I know I can't speak for the southern counties, but I know Wake, Durham, Chatham, all those are on 4-year cycles.
I guess what I'm trying to say is, and what I'm getting at is, with the economy being the way it is today and no unforeseen time frame on when things are going to go down, it just seems like it's a pretty hard time to be hitting people because most people's taxes are going to go up, property taxes, majority. And it just seems like it's a pretty bad time to be doing it when you got time, you said, to go forward.
Yeah, this was set out years ago. This was set out over 3 years ago, maybe. And there's also something that has to be published and required to be published by statute is called the revenue neutral rate. So we do have to publish that. So that is, if the value goes up 50%, the revenue neutral rate is the rate that would bring in the same amount of money as the previous year. So some folks' taxes may go up, some folks' taxes may actually go down in a reappraisal. So.
Anyone else?
One quick question.
Sure.
So to make sure I understand this correctly, not that I'm doing anything like that right now. So what you're telling me is these houses that are under, should I start to build a house, say in July or September, I may be paying taxes on half a house.
Correct.
Rather than the empty lot I was paying the taxes on. Should it be sitting there halfway built or far along enough for you to appraise it for me to pay half taxes on it?
Yep.
All right.
As it sits as of January 1st, and that's not a Harnett County thing, that's a state of North Carolina thing. Every state has a date that they are responsible for reappraising property as of. And in North Carolina, that's January 1st.
Yes, if you would come up to the microphone, please, sir.
What I'm asking, is being appraised our property every 8 years.
The last reappraisal was 2017.
Now you're moving up to 4 years. And every time it's reappraised, the taxes are going to go up and down. I mean, it does, the appraisals go up or down, okay? And if you do it every 8 years, that's been the case, right? In the past.
The previous reappraisal was 2017, and I don't know what it was
What I'm
before
saying now,
17.
what I'm thinking now, and I don't know anything about it, what I'm thinking now, you're gonna appraise it more often, and the bottom line is to get money, we all know that. If you go appraise it more often, so our taxes going up more often, every 3 or 4 years, instead of every 5 or 6 years, right?
That would only be if the market kept at the same speed that it's going now.
Yes, sir. Any other questions? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. We thank you for your information.
All right. Appreciate you guys having us.
Thank
Okay.
you so
If
much.
you have any questions, feel free to let us know. And we'll be mailing notices in about a month and a half.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
And we again thank the leadership from Harnett County being here, Commissioner Weatherspoon and Brent Trout, the county manager. Okay. We our second on our agenda is the new town hall, the police headquarters. Jerry, you want to take that on?
Yes, sir. Mr. Mayor, members of the board, good evening. I think Veronica will pull up the agenda and some of the pictures we may have for the new town hall, but this was a public notice that was required by the USDA, which is United States Department of Agriculture. USDA is going to be our financial mechanism institution and how we're going to finance the town hall. A number of us have been working on this project for about a year and a half with our team, which is Rogers Builders is our contractors, Oakley Collier is our architects, Davenport and Company is our finance advisors, and also with staff. And the board back in December at the workshop had obligated $1 million to go towards this project. We are still working on the numbers. There are a number of subcontractors, probably better than most projects that we've seen. Anywhere between 3 and 11 subcontractors are bidding on each of the items in town hall. Trying to think what else I need to add to this. Once we get to the pictures, we can show you the schematic of this right here is actually the site plan on the footprint of the old town hall. You can see that we're actually adding parking that probably used to be there on William Street, parking towards the rear. And then we have to reconfigure the parking lot towards the library because you have to have a 24-foot aisle in between the parking spaces. So to the north of the library, those parking spaces will not be parallel, but there will be the back-end type parking in order to get to 24 feet.
Jerry, just to clarify, the new town hall will sit where the town hall and the old fire station
And the old
were
fire station annex
together.
building. That's
Yeah.
correct. It'll be a 2-story building. We'll get that in a couple of other slides. But the parking arrangement indicates that I think there's about 81 parking spaces that can go towards town hall because being in the downtown, you can share parking within the downtown, which we've illustrated there. If you go to the next one, Veronica. This is our schematic that we have revised and almost finalized, but you'll see the yellow part to the top left would be the boardroom and the public area. Can't really tell the colors so much, but to the right of that is green, and that's finance and utilities. To the very bottom is the dark blue. That's the police department on the first floor, and going to the right is the blue is the police department on the second floor. Just to the right of that, the yellow is the administration piece. And moving up towards the pink is your planning department, code enforcement. You can't really see it on here, but we have not just planned for what we have as far as existing employees, we are planning for the future. So every office space that you see there is not going to be fully occupied on day one. It's going to take a couple of years to actually fill in those positions. But based on, again, and I've indicated before, we visited Garner Town Hall when they just built theirs a couple of years ago. Fuquay Arena renovated an old warehouse. So we understood what they did right, and we understood what they did wrong. And with these three communities moving as quickly as they are in growth, you have to plan larger for your police department and definitely larger for your planning department. And next slide, Veronica. You can see that this is a newer image. Now, what's going to change about this is because of the topography, we know that's going to be at least 2 steps entering into Town Hall. You can flip through the next. And this is kind of the side view from William Street. And we're going to use every square inch of the existing space that we have now. So we're going from 4,500 square feet with the number of employees we have to 21,000. You can keep going. Another side view towards the First Bank, looking northeast, and the door there will be your Sally Port. What's important about this building is that where we exist today, it's very unsafe with our police department. When they bring in someone for a crime, there's no intake, there's no security, there's no processing, and there's no processing of evidence. So this building will have an up-to-date police department where police officers can do their work freely, and it'll be a secure building for the entire staff and the public. And one more slide, Veronica, I believe. And then that's the rear view from, from the bakery looking towards east.
And Jerry, one of the reasons for the step up is that it's not quite level.
It's not quite level.
Yeah, so you have to
That's
factor
correct.
that in. Yeah,
That's correct. So, and again, that's William Street looking south. So those are the added parking spaces that you'll see along William Street. So again, it's a public meeting just to indicate that we are going to use USDA as our finance mechanism. Local banks only will loan you for up to 20 years. That makes the principal and interest payments very high, almost unaffordable. But when you use USDA, you can go anywhere between 30 and 40 years. Our plan from our finance group is we're going to do a 30-year note. 2 years of that will be interim financing, so hopefully a local bank such as First Citizens or First Bank or Truist will get the loan for the interim financing, and then the other 28 years will be fixed financing through USDA.
and that's Department of Agriculture.
Department of Agriculture. Yes, sir. So that's it, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, should we have questions from the
If
audience?
there's questions, be happy to answer them.
Any questions from those present? Come to the microphone, please. And your name and address.
Hi, Dolores Price, just down the road on Broad Street. How many parking spaces are going to be on William Street? Because I've noticed now that as folks are making that right turn, that the parking on William Street here can get a little dicey with the cars that are parked in front of the bakery and on that side of the street. Probably not as it gets farther down, but right in front of the bakery, when you're making that right, it can get a little dicey. And also didn't see any rendering for handicap access. I wasn't sure where the handicap access was going to be. It could just be the drawings.
Yes,
That's
so
where I'm at. Thank you.
So, yes, Dolores, there is a handicap space or spaces along William Street, and there are handicap spaces that exist today on Broad Street in front of the town hall, so they will remain. The bakery, I understand there have been some complaints about how when you turn right on William Street in front of the bakery, those parking spaces seem to be very close to that intersection, so that's something we do need to look at.
How about handicap entrance?
Handicap entrance will be, the public entrance will be in the front, so there'll be ramps in the front.
Another question. Jimmy Johnson, if you'll come to the microphone, please.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, Jimmy Johnson, 1206 Oak Grove Church Road, Angel. My question kind of revolves around Dolores. If we're going from a 4,500 square foot building to a 21,000 square foot building, my question would be, how many new parking spaces? If we're multiplying the building times 5, how many new parking spaces? Because that's the question.
And I can have maybe Sean answer that question, but based on our zoning district, we're in the downtown, and buildings that develop in the downtown share their parking. So we've identified more than sufficient number for shared parking.
In other words, adjacent and over on Broad Street too? Or?
That's correct. You can use Broad Street North and Broad Street Northwest and Broad Street Northeast as shared parking.
I understand. My business isn't downtown anymore, and I moved out because of parking. But I feel for the folks downtown, guys. I mean, if you're going to multiply your need times 5 and you're not adding, I don't know if you're adding any parking spaces with this new building. I don't know. Maybe I'm way off base here, but just count now and count after the building. I would urge the board to look at doing something on up some additional parking up Broad Street for your vendors and your people that are downtown, because they're going to suffer.
And
they'll suffer bad.
And I'd also say we have discussion tonight in closed session that we may be adding more parking in the downtown.
And Jimmy, I wonder how many years it'll be before we need a parking garage.
Now with that building.
There you go. Okay. All right, any other questions? If not, Jerry, thank you. We're looking so forward to this new facility. It's going to really make us proud. All right, Hans, you got another budget amendment. We're happy about that. Just give us the basics on that, and we'll move on.
All right, I'll be relatively quick because I've got these hiccups or whatever, and no one has been kind enough to spook it out of me. So I'm going to be quick. All right, either way.
We've just reduced your salary by 50%.
Well, yeah, we can find another fund.
Did that not do it?
I think it would.
Okay.
Actually, yes, it would.
Got rid of your hiccups. Okay.
Actually, huh? Wow, yeah, thank you. Yeah, that scared me. All right. So this budget amendment's great. PD has, for as long as we can tell, has not applied for a GCC GEMS grant. This is a grant. This is like a finance director's, well, nearly a dream, because there's no match to this. And so basically, yes, we did talk about it during our last meeting. This budget amendment here allows us to spend the money and then reimbursement, of course. That's how this grant works. So thankfully, our finance technician, Tabitha McNeil, she prepared this, and she did a good job. So it's good. It's good. And very likely we'll have this money spent and brought back before the end of this fiscal year. So it's going to be good.
I see this came from the Governor's Crime Commission. Okay.
Yes, sir. Yeah, I should probably spell that out. Yeah.
And I would add that we brought this before the board. It's like it was a year ago. You had to apply in October of 2020. And the funding will go towards updating our weapons with the police department.
Good.
So this will go a long ways.
Well, and in the spirit of transparency and trying to let folks know when we make changes to the budget and the spending, we appreciate you bringing this forward. Is there a motion that budget amendment number 9 be approved?
Hold on a second, if you don't mind, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
They don't have an agenda neither. I want to print it for me. My computer's not working. So what are you talking about? Can you give us numbers?
Yeah. So it would be, it's $24,495 that through the Governor's Crime Commission, it's kind of DPS to some degree. They are going to, they've already approved our spending, and they've got a budget, that we need to maintain online with them. And so as soon as we actually spend this money, we have to track things properly. And so meaning we have to take pictures of the serial numbers off the guns and things like that and whatnot, naturally. And we need to make them look good. They make us look good. We make them look good. And hopefully, God willing, we're actually, we just applied for another one. And we will find out perhaps in October or thereabouts if we are, if we get that award.
What happens with the weapons they have now?
Those would be sold back to, very likely, was it Fuquay Guns, something like that? Yeah, please, by all means, yeah.
Myself and Chief Thompson, Lieutenant Adams went to Fuquay Gun. Basically, we asked for what we wanted, according to the grant. Our old weapons are over 8 years old. They're going to be sold back to Fuquay Gun. The officer has the option to buy their gun back the next day. If not, it's something to the public.
So it'd be typical is a gov deals type situation.
It's very common on all PD municipalities to do something like this.
And also add that the grant max award was $25,000 and we received $24,495. Typically, there's a local match, and this was not a local match required, so it's 100% state and federal funds.
Excellent.
That's awesome.
Is there a motion we approve the budget amendment number 9?
I make a motion that we approve budget number 9.
Any further questions or discussion?
I thought we had asked the town manager that. I mean, was this pressing? I thought we had made.
It's free money.
Well, I understand that, but I thought we won't be voting anymore in workshops unless it was.
Absolutely necessary. Well, we need to make this budget amendment, so this was necessary to put on the agenda.
Yes, especially with the COVID, the back order is still in effect. Some of these guns are getting ordered, and it could be, 3, 4, 5 months before some of the guns come in. So if we order them now, we can get them quicker than next year.
Any further questions? Are you ready to vote? All in favor, raise your right hand, please. In opposition? Okay, it's unanimous. Thank you so much for your transparency. Okay. All right. Now, we are moving. So we need to look at the logistics of that, Mr. Manager.
Where number 4 would be the board retreat and logistics.
Okay.
So there was discussion at the last board meeting that we wanted to bring up the retreat. I did call the board members this week, and so the dates are set for the 25th and 26th of March. 2 days. It'll be right here in the boardroom. TJ Cog has facilitated our retreats in the past. I did hear comments that they didn't want to do, I would say, team building type exercises. You just wanted to get to the details, the topics, and have decisions by the board made after each topic, and that will be passed on to TJ Cog. Their fees are nominal at $2,700 to have them facilitate. I expressed my interest to some of the board members that it's very difficult at a retreat for staff to take down the accurate notes that TJ Cog does so well, and they send a report, a month and 2 afterwards, and then that goes back to the staff, and then we hit the ground running with those priorities of the board. So I didn't know if there was any questions. Once we finalize the agenda, we'll send it directly out to the board. But I've heard from many of you of what your hot topics are, so we'll put that in agenda form.
Okay.
Jerry, just a quick question. You said increase of pricing from last year to this year for their service?
Yeah, I believe it was 22 or 2,300 last year, and this year is 2,700.
Okay, since I mentioned it, you want to just give a brief thing about the logistics of moving?
Sure. So, logistics as far as spreading staff out. At one point in time, we did look at a couple of different sites for the town hall, and those properties did not work out for the board and for staff. So, logistically, administration, which is myself, town clerk, and HR, have moved to the Public Works Complex. Planning, code enforcement, community development, they will move to the Parks and Rec building in Jack Marley Park, I would say next month in March. And then we are going to lease the property across the street, used to be the old Feral Gas, for our public utilities or water sewer payments, and our police department will move across the street at the old Feral Gas. So that will happen probably in April or May. Schedule moving forward. Demolition will take place in Town Hall the 1st of June or that week. Begin construction and completion July 1 of 2023. So it'll take almost 13 months to complete the project.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Mayor, I think the last meeting we had came up the firm, and I know Mr. Coach and I had questions about it. It doesn't sound like we have the option, whether or not we want them or not. We're not going to do anything about it. If we decide we don't want the firm,
Which firm?
TJ Cog.
Oh, okay. Okay.
You do have the option. We have not signed the contract, so you do have the option to either use TJ Cog or not.
and I'm like him, it went up, what, $500, and from what we wanted to do, it's a lot less than what they done last time, because we don't want to sit up there and have to play games. And have, you put stickers on the wall that we know more about what needs to be done in our town than they do. You agree?
Jerry, can you tell us if by eliminating all of that, because yes, I totally agree with, I feel that we need to get to the business of the town without all of the gameplay that goes along with making the day fun. Can you explain then, Jerry, what TJ Cog will be doing if we eliminate that end of what they normally do? So explain their facilitation in that world without the other stuff, and then what will they be doing for that 2,700?
Well, I could just say this. I mean, in my 30 years of experience, in the last 3 in Anger, a third-party facilitator works very well to keep us all on track. Number one. And number two, as far as the detailed notes that they take, Elena will take for us and report that back to us, it really helps. I think I expressed to Alan, it's very difficult for me to facilitate and take notes. And I know we got staff here too, but staff is going to be working on logistics for the board as well. So it makes it very difficult to capture everything you guys want to be done and what you say, and we capture that in notes. We can do without them if that's the board's wish.
I meet with them every month, recently online. I think one of the values they bring is that if we're trying to figure out what's going on about a particular topic, they have the capabilities of knowing what's going on through a wide area in the central part of North Carolina. And it seems to me that's worth something.
And just to add to that, they do work with 15 other towns, cities, and counties within the Wake County. And so they do have knowledge of what's going on in other towns. So if they hear something, they can give us their input and guidance.
Yep.
The other towns nearby, Dunn, Coates, Irwin, have all worked with outside facilitators in their retreats, and some of them are even going to the beach. So, okay, the call for the vote. The question is to approve the use of TJ Cog for the Town of Anger Board Retreat. Is there a motion?
I make such a motion.
Okay, is there any further discussion? If not, all in favor, please raise your right hand. All opposed? Okay, it passes 3-1. But thank you for your comments. And all right.
Before we move on from that, may I make a comment once again, Jerry? Yes, if you will, please communicate to them that, again, we want to move on with the business,
Right.
and we do appreciate them being. We want them to move us forward when we get deadlocked in beating a dead horse,
Right.
as the phrase goes, which I know is difficult for you to do, being responsible for us up here. So we do expect them to do that, but we really want to make it a work day.
That'll be communicated tomorrow.
Amen. Thank you. Thank you, Alan.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Okay, there are 4 items that are up for discussion from the board. The first is junkyard screening ordinance, adopted June of 2021. Is there any discussion on that?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we table this.
That particular thing?
Yes.
Would that be A, B, C, and D?
No, just A.
Or just A?
Is that what you're saying? Just A?
This one. These are only 2 we got, right?
Oh, okay. He's saying table the items that are subject to the ordinance, compliance with the ordinance. Am I correct in saying that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, there's a motion to, in regard to item A, the motion to table any further action on enforcing the junkyard screening ordinance against the 2 parties that are currently involved. Normally, when you table something, you have to specify when it is tabled to.
What?
Are there current enforcement actions that, is that what you're talking about?
That were
table?
delayed, yes. Sean, you want to come forward and tell us what's going on, please, sir?
Junior, is that your motion? Is that what you're asking? Okay.
As a legal matter, I'm not sure we can do that. If we have an ordinance to be enforced, we have to enforce it across the board. If we want to take away the ordinance, we could do that. But if the ordinance is in place, I think it has to be enforced as written.
We
across the
delayed
board.
enforcement for a year, I think.
But across the board.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I don't know that we can specifically pick certain ones to table. If we want to table enforcement in total, I suppose we
said.
could do that. But
Yes. So, would your motion be to delay all junkyard screening enforcement? It's just what it's called in the ordinance. I apologize. Okay. What is, you have the motion in front of us. Do you want to withdraw it or substitute another motion based on what Dan has said? Okay, is there another motion with regard to the screening of places where automobiles are kept that are no longer real good?
Is there any way that we can have the word junkyard removed from the ordinance? Because I think that's a big hang-up for a lot of people.
Sure.
you can just amend the title.
There we go.
Is there a motion to do that?
I make the motion that we amend the title.
To,
Help me out, Alan.
I think inoperable vehicles is
Yeah, because that's what we're focusing on.
maybe Sean can.
okay, Sean wants to,
Let's make sure we do it right if that's what the board wants to do here. All I need is a consensus from the board, and I will draft a new ordinance amendment removing the word you don't like. but it does need to go through the formal ordinance amendment process.
That's true.
Yes.
Planning board meeting,
Yep.
public hearing advertised,
Yes, sir.
public hearing conducted, and then we can adopt it.
Yes, sir.
That's true.
So the summary I put in front of you when I got here tonight is a timeline of the enforcement action for the junkyard screening ordinance in place. Adopted June of 2021. Deadline was set 6 months later, early December. Letter sent out to all parties in Andrew that may or may not have junkyards. Personally investigated by our code enforcement officer, Mr. Hodges, met with every property owner. We were able to determine that only 2 properties met the formal definition of a junkyard in the ordinance, which again is just any lot containing more than 3 unregistered and non-functional vehicles. That's all it is. That's all we're saying. One of those properties, Nissan Automotive, the property owner has since applied for a fence permit to screen in the junked vehicle storage area.
Okay.
So they have taken steps towards compliance. The other one across the street here, 165 North Raleigh Street, we have not received any word that they are taking steps towards compliance as of today. Okay. I will yield to Dan in terms of stopping enforcement halfway through here. We've had one property owner comply. We're issuing fines, and we have the authority to issue fines on a daily basis. We haven't done so until we could hear direction from the board once again on this topic. So we just need clear direction on how to proceed.
I think there are two issues here, one on current enforcement and 2, redrafting the ordinance so that it speaks differently.
Well, and one issue to keep in mind as well is that others have already spent funds and time and effort to come into compliance with the ordinance. So I mean, the board certainly has the right, if you no longer want that ordinance, you just go through the process of removing that ordinance. But until that, as long as that ordinance is in place, it really needs to be enforced as written.
Can't do that without notice and regular process. Okay. So, is it that I assume it's the consensus of the board that we have Sean take another look at the ordinance and rewrite it? But what do you want to do with the current situations?
I have to speak, and I did not want to have to speak, but I feel it very important that I say what I think. I think those that were around were very aware that I am one of the commissioners that spoke against this, and I was not a commissioner at the time. Very few people showed up to fight this ordinance. And I, as a business owner myself, was not in favor of this. And I spoke several times before the groups that were passing this. I haven't changed my mind about how I felt about it, being an undue burden upon people that may not be able to afford it and have the opportunity, the funds to do it. But it did pass. And I was not a commissioner to make that happen. There was quite a few, and correct me if I'm wrong, amount of time spent before this when it was brought to the planning board with photographs taken and things submitted, and they felt that it was in the best interest that this be done. I spoke several times against it, but unfortunately it passed. And a lot of people did spend money to do the things that were required to make this happen. And I feel badly about it being brought up and being passed. But it did. And a lot of people spent the funds already to do this, and they can't get their money back. I begged that it be grandfathered at those meetings, and they voted not to grandfather it, to pass it on through like it was. I think I even spoke at one point about the screening issue and saying, could we not just soften it up, and can we just do the front side that the traffic is seeing? And that didn't float down the river either. So while I will not be in favor of removing it, it's because so many people spent the money to do what was required by this passage. And I am so sorry that it got to this point. But, we have let it sit for a long time, and fines have been paid off that did pile up for a lot of people that did comply to it. Do I think it's a great idea? No, I don't. But unfortunately, it was passed, and all of those people spent their money on it, and they can't get it back. So I had to say that just so you understand why I'm not in favor of removing it. I was never in favor of it being there to begin with, but I feel like for those people that know me, I had to sort of clarify that.
Dan, could you help us with what our options are at this point?
Well, right now you have an ordinance in place that really should be enforced until it's not in place. So your options, in my mind, really are enforce the ordinance or remove the ordinance.
Okay. And to affect that, we could either do nothing or, in other words, just allow Sean and company to proceed?
That would be enforcement of the ordinance, yes.
What is the consensus of the board?
Has either one of these people come to the town manager and talked of different options?
The property at 331 West Depot have met with Sean and myself and Shannon a couple of times. And we've asked him, what is being done to meet the ordinance.
Mm-hmm.
There's someone in the audience who wants to speak, is by consensus of the board. Is that okay?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. In the green sweater, please come forward and state your name and address, please.
Thank you. I'm Tommy Burns, and I'm at 2237 Oak Grove Church Road. I spoke to you earlier this month about it. I do this for a living. I've got a position similar to Mr. Vincent's. I've had one for over 20 years. And I've been on your side for every single one of these. And I tell the board that I work for all the time. Sometimes the juice ain't worth the squeeze. And I think that's where we're at with this, because I know that some of what Mr. Coates may be speaking to is the dumpster enclosures, which people have spent money on. I or Stewart or others have talked to every automotive place in this town, and we've gotten a myriad of responses as to how the business owner addressed it. We ask about trying to be reasonable. Opaque screening, is that black screening? No, it has to be wood or plastic. But right down the street here, there's black screening at the music center. So I guess I just feel like that we're trying to swing at a moving target. I feel like that as a professional, it's a little shaky where we're headed, I think. From the property owner standpoint and the tenant standpoint. And I told you the story when I was here 2 weeks ago. I drove all the way from Carteret County to get here today to talk about this. And I've been dealing with a plane crash all since Sunday night down there. I think Mr. Stewart's getting a raw deal here. He's 81 years old. He's been our tenant for 25 years on that property. And this is an undue burden on him. It's going to present an unnecessary hardship on him. I think that us as property owners, we're looking after our tenant, and I respect what you do. I've done it for over 20 years, I know. But I just think that there's some reasonableness here that needs to be exercised. And if you don't like the ordinance, you can do away with it. I meet almost weekly with code enforcement officers, and we have to decide, what issues are we willing to tackle that we feel good
in court about, that'll hold up in court if it were challenged. And I think, I'm just speaking from experience, I feel that strongly about this one. I've been through your ordinances front to back. That's what I do. And I'm just trying to find something reasonable for our tenant, who's been a good tenant. And I want to see him be able to go out the way he wants to go out, not be put out of business by the town because of an undue enforcement action that, I question to start with. So that's where I'm at. I'll be happy to answer any questions, provide any support or advice, whatever you need. I'm here, use me. I'll be glad to do it. I do this for a living and have worked in some places here in Harnett County. All my time's been in North Carolina. So I'll be glad. My farm's just right down here on Oak Grove Church Road, and we're here most weekends. So,
having been involved in what action do you suggest that we take?
I just feel like that the way it's being applied to him doesn't meet the definition of the business that he's operating. He is not operating a junkyard where parts are being sold. He is operating a towing business where vehicle storage is an ancillary part of that business. If Mr. Stewart pulls a car for an insurance company or a lien holder or the Highway Patrol or the Andrew Police Department, he's at the mercy of the state when it comes to how he can dispose of that property. DMV is backed up for months getting this lien paperwork done. So I feel like that there's some reasonableness that could be exercised in this. The ordinance that was cited in the violation letter in your supplemental code history, it has every effective date of these ordinances. And the section that was cited was in 2013. And I brought up last time about, the enforceability of that. And so I just think there's some issues that need to be worked through. We're certainly reasonable to work with. We like I said, we through the years could have made a lot more money on that lot, but we've had a good relationship with that man. And we're all honorable people, and we want to do the right thing. And that's why I'm here. I'll be glad to help any of you, answer any questions. Be glad to.
What are you proposing that y'all could do?
I think it needs to be re-examined because I don't think Mr. Stewart's operating the junkyard there.
I think it needs to be left alone.
Again, junkyard is defined by the ordinance itself, so it's not common usage of junkyard. It's junkyard as defined by the ordinance.
The definition is an establishment or place of business which is maintained, operated, or used for storing, keeping, buying, or selling junk or for maintenance or operation of an automobile graveyard. Any lot containing more than 3 unregistered and non-functional, which is junk in parentheses, motor vehicles shall constitute a junkyard for the purpose of this ordinance. Admittedly, the term is not very good. But
and I just don't think he's operating a junkyard.
Are you still saying it's a junkyard?
No. I just read the definition.
I couldn't hear you.
Mr. Gardner's he's operating a towing business. He's not selling parts off the cars. He's not. He's operating a towing business, and he has for over 25 years.
I don't even know. Do you know what a junkyard is?
I've seen a lot of them, yes.
But it's junkyard as defined by the ordinance, which does not require sale of parts, as just read.
Any lot containing more than 3 unregistered and non-functional motor vehicles shall constitute a junkyard for the purpose of this ordinance.
12 over there just like that right now. Exactly what you just said, I got 12 of them. But I can't do nothing with them by law. Because if I do, then I'm stealing an automobile.
Understand. I beg your pardon, sir.
Jerry.
Dan, well, go ahead.
Jerry, you know how we usually give, well, I don't even know if we even still do it, but you know how we were giving like grants to businesses to help the outside of their businesses in downtown?
Right.
We don't do anything for the other businesses out there that have, oh God, I don't want to say something that's going to make people mad. I eyesores.
Right.
You know, is
I-
there any way that maybe we could come up with some kind of grant to help these other people that really need a little bit of sprucing up of their grounds?
Well, and I think that grant was approved by the board prior to me, but it was a facade grant.
Right.
So it was for downtown
Right.
businesses. And, you know, maybe this is a Dan question, but we have not lent support to the other businesses
We haven't.
who have
Mm-hmm.
become in compliance.
Right.
So,
Mr. Mayor, I know we're not talking about that, but I do want to reply to something he said. I was the one that was pushing and behind the dumpsters. When I brought pictures in here, saw children eating out of the dumpsters around town, I'd had enough. I don't know if I had anything to do with this or not. I don't remember. I don't know if I was the commissioner at the time.
No, I don't think so.
But you know, I don't agree with it. I'm like Mr. Coates. I don't agree with it, and I don't know what to do. I mean,
unfortunately, one of the few things that's left for a town to take care of is appearances.
Mm-hmm.
We deal with appearances of buildings. We deal with appearances of streets and what's required in residential subdivisions. So sometimes appearances can get tough, and so I wonder if we shouldn't or if we can talk about this further and decide what to do. What does that do to enforcement if we?
I think enforcement needs to continue as long as the ordinance is on the books.
Correct.
But as a general rule, the Board of Commissioners legislates. Y'all come up with the policy. Y'all decide what the ordinances are going to be, and you adopt and approve the ordinances. Once those are adopted and approved, then town staff is charged with enforcing those ordinances. So unless and until you change the ordinance through either remove the ordinance or change the ordinance through the adoption process, that ordinance is in place and town staff is charged with enforcing.
Could we suspend the ordinance?
I don't know that you can suspend it for a particular period of time. I think you just either have the ordinance or you don't have the ordinance. I'm not aware of a case where you can suspend for a particular period of time an ordinance, particularly where it's pretty apparent that you would be doing it for the benefit of a particular person.
Well, I'm relatively sure there are some things that the ordinance fits that we shouldn't allow, but I understand the hardships here.
Sean, a question for you. Under this ordinance, are these the only two businesses that it pertains to?
Correct.
Sean, can I ask you another question? And I know we ain't got to call names, and I know they don't have any kind of vehicle stored on their lots. But, and again, I don't think I was part. No, I wasn't part of this. Why can one business have black screen up around theirs, and we're telling these people they can't?
So it's only the properties that meet that specific definition upon Shannon's inspection, which he only found 2 properties. If you do meet that definition, then you have to do the 6-foot tall opaque fence, and it specifically does not allow chain link with screening. That was one of the things the planning board strongly advocated for when it was adopted.
I remind the board that we, a couple of years ago, did enforcement against a business in the ETJ and had to get court involved, and but finally resolved it. So this is not focused entirely on just these 2 individuals.
Well, I tell you, to end this, I'd like to make a motion, and I'm sorry, Trey, because I know you have spent money to fix your place. apologize to you. But I would make the motion that we do away with this ordinance. See where it goes.
What's the
Now,
process on
now
that,
let me
Dan?
ask you this: when I say do away with it, the fines that has already accrued, is that doing away with those as well, or?
I don't believe so. I believe if there was a violation of the ordinance at the time that the ordinance was in place, then those fines would still apply.
What's the process of doing away with an ordinance?
I believe you can vote to remove the ordinance. I don't know that there's as long and involved a process for removing an ordinance as there is for adopting an ordinance.
Okay.
So I suppose
Could we come back later with a better ordinance?
you can always come back with a different ordinance. It just needs to go through the process.
Okay. The motion is before us that we remove the ordinance involved in non-conforming junkyards and junk vehicle storage. Is there a discussion on this?
I didn't realize he made a motion to do away with it. But anyway, and I would revisit my question once again that I had proposed earlier on. What was it? Why was it absolutely necessary that all four corners of the yard be closed up? Because I think this was brought about, when I remember its discussion, it was all just about as unsightly things that you ride through town and look at. I remember some of the wordage of how it was proposed. And then I, at one point, questioned, well, then why must you enclose all four corners of it? This wasn't a safety issue of access to it as much as it was just to screen it. So I guess I'm throwing out there again, if that was the purpose and what you were trying to achieve, then does it all four sides of it? Because I know we did away with any other option other than opaque screening, which was, again, a big deal because people didn't want to look at the slatted fences and whatnot. But could it be changed, amended to just be the street side of, as opposed to all four walls being done? I don't know what I'm saying. I'm just throwing out that as an option.
Unless, for instance, it's on a corner.
If I could just throw out one idea.
Okay.
I think I hear everybody's
Help us.
intentions, looking for the path to get where we want to go. Would it be illegal for me to offer, as ordinance administrator, that I will no longer issue civil citations per this section until a new ordinance is adopted to please the board?
As long as we're doing that across the board, that we are declining, because you do have some discretion as a code enforcement matter to issue fines or not issue fines, as long as that is being done across the board and not particular to any one or two properties, then I think that's okay.
So all junkyard screening enforcement will be on hold until a new ordinance is formally adopted.
Junior, would you accept that as a substitute?
And I will bring you one to amend this one in the next.
We
would remain
in
in place
effect
until
suspend
a new one.
enforcement of it.
You're talking about
if you
suspending the fines and everything associated with it.
Going forward.
If you suspend enforcement across the board, I think that is probably okay.
Going forward.
Correct.
Okay. Would you accept that as a substitute, Mr. Price? With the consent of the board?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We've let
Okay.
other people speak, so
All
we
right.
shouldn't stop it now.
And your name and address, please.
Robert Nissen Automotive, 331 West Depot Street. I wanted to address a few things. If you are going to reevaluate or rewrite the ordinance, I was in compliance completely with what the town approved in 2012 when I moved into my location. and it was approved as it is, basically. There's not a whole lot of change inside the fenced area, but yeah, some clutter did occur, and I've done a lot to clean it up as far as I'm concerned, because it's been a strain on me to do it, and I had to pay somebody to help me with it because I can't physically do it myself. And there's a couple other things about the opacity of the fence being a complete wood fence, which is going to deteriorate over time, just as any other covering you put on there. But the security aspect of having a wood fence, which is easily scaled, and it looks pretty unsightly to put barbed wire on top of a wooden fence, and that's going to be hard for me to have any kind of security for the vehicles that are in my care. I've got to provide, I'm responsible for the condition of vehicles that I keep inside when I'm storing them, and I don't store them for profit, but when I'm working on somebody's car and it turns into a big project and it drags out for a long time, but it's restoration work in some cases, and they're going to look unsightly when you take the fenders off or when you're doing mechanical stuff and you've got things disassembled. So I understand that looks unsightly, but it's legal. I'm working on cars. I'm not doing something covert or, what do you call it? Breaking up cars for parts and, selling things illegally. I don't sell any parts. There are parts delays that we're dealing with too, which requires that things sit for some period of time. And again, the same thing I'm dealing with that Mr. Gardner has, where I have to wait for approval from the state before I can dispose of certain vehicles. And I've got my letter here that shows vehicles, and two of them are in fact mine, and they're not junk by any means to me because they run and or will run with a battery and some fresh fuel, but things I care about. And then one other is a vehicle that somebody left and wouldn't pay for, and I got stuck with it, and so that's in process to be able to get rid of it. I've got other vehicles that I intend to get rid of. The lot's gotten cluttered, and I apologize for that, and I need to stay better care of it, but there's been a lot going on in my life in the past 5 years. It's been difficult. I've had some major health problems. It's not everybody's problem, it's mine, but I'm doing what I can to try to clean things up, and I've moved a lot of things around so they're not visible. But fencing, the other thing about the fencing, the screening that I have, going forward, it was approved originally, and like it's okay to have black screening at the park, but not around my yard. But it was at the time that I moved in, and it did an effective job. In fact, it was too effective because a friend of mine died in the backyard of my shop, and nobody could see him because of the screening. And it wasn't until one of the EMT workers scaled the fence to look in, and they finally found him laying on the ground. Had they been able to see him more clearly, they might have been able to get to him before he died. He was 10 years younger than me, so at my age, I don't buy green bananas. But, it could happen to me one day, and I wish they could find me instead of not. And so that's the other thing with them doing it on the screening and how opaque it is. People know that I run a repair shop. They see the cars. I will clean it up. I will make it better, but I can't do it quickly. And if you could just bear with me and keep that in mind as you come up with your amended ordinance, if that's what you end up doing, that it'd be reasonable and appropriate.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Mr. Mayor, tell me if I'm wrong. You have two options when this ordinance came out. You either abided by it, which I know some people that did, or you didn't. And if you didn't, you got fined. I've done everything in my power tonight to do away with the fines. Legally, we can't. But I will stick with if we decide a month from now or 3 months or a year from now to come back with another ordinance, we can do that. But I will stick with my motion that I had a while ago about let's do away with this ordinance. And I'm sorry, but the fines have had to be paid. And they didn't fix their fences like they supposed to have, but they paid their fines. So the ones out there that did it, they can't come back and say we let them off scot-free. They paid their fines. You had those two options. That's the way I'm looking at it. I've done all I can do. But I will let's stay with the motion that to abolish this ordinance here.
Any further discussion?
Junior, just to clarify so that I understand, because I heard what you said and I processed it. You're saying do away with the ordinance, but the fines would have to remain in effect for the ones that did not pay through that process which would probably compensate those people that did spend their money on those fences that did build them when it was required. Is that what you're saying? You're saying to.
Because Jerry said, attorney says we can't do away with the fine.
Gotcha. Okay.
Correct?
That's my understanding. I
Okay.
can look further into that. But
Which would. So your motion is to do away with that particular ordinance, but the fines that were incurred with that ordinance while it was in effect, are they responsible for?
He just made that statement. If there is anything out there that could change that, well, it wouldn't be fair. I'm sorry, it just wouldn't be fair to do that because people did abide by it, and I don't know if there's some that hadn't already paid fines. So I think that fines need to be paid, and we abolish this going forward, and they don't have to worry about doing anything until another board gets up here and decides they want to do something different. You agree?
Yes, and what I'm saying is something could still be discussed in the future as far as a plan to deal with unsightliness, which would have occurred had it been grandfathered that way. But it still leaves open for discussion how to handle and plan for the future that is coming up with that.
The alternative suggested would have accomplished, I think, the same thing in the sense not further enforce the ordinance, but refer it back to Sean for a rewrite. So that's your other option.
Well, I don't think there's no speediness to get that done. I think we've had enough of this for a while. I have. We're not going to put it on hold. We're going to abolish this ordinance that we have now, and clear up the paperwork and the fines. Correct. And then once that's done, then if we decide to come back later and give, Sean comes up with an ordinance, or we say, okay, how about looking into an ordinance that can clean up this or that, then we can do that. I mean, that's what I'm saying.
How long do you think it'll take for you to come up with something? Because I have a lot of constituents telling me they want the town cleaned up.
So there's one particular clause in this junkyard portion of our ordinance that triggered us to start our enforcement action. It's the amortization clause that set a 6-month clock on existing junkyards to come into compliance with the current ordinance.
Mm-hmm.
All we have to do is remove that amortization clause, and everybody remains grandfathered in. It's like one sentence. I can do an ordinance amendment, have it adopted by probably April.
But when you say grandfathered in, then that doesn't mean that they're going to clean it up, though.
Right. It would leave them, it would let them remain.
Well, removing the ordinance wouldn't necessarily mean they'd clean it up either, right?
Yeah, I mean, so our hands are tied, so what do we do?
Okay, any further comments from the board? The motion is to remove ordinance, and what is this section on?
It's 13-11. It's not on the sheet in front of you.
13-11.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. The motion is before you to completely remove the ordinance without, of course, changing what has gone before.
yeah, they'd remove the ordinance as of today.
As of today. If no further discussion, are you ready to vote? All in favor of that motion, please raise your right hand. All against? You know what that means. That means it goes to me. All right.
That's why we don't want to be mayor.
That's right. As long as the board is not against coming back and redoing the ordinance. Does that make sense? Then I will vote for the motion. So the ordinance is removed. Prior actions remain, but no further action will be taken on it until any substitute ordinance is approved. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Second issue is R6 rezonings. Who wants to speak to that?
I can kick us off, if that's okay.
Okay.
Okay, switching gears to new development, which we've seen a lot of in the last few years. I passed out a memo to the board, which has attached to it a simple spreadsheet showing 17 of the last major residential subdivisions approved in Andrew since 2016, with a comparison of the acreage, lot count, units per acre, which we call density, and their zoning district. Back in December of 2020, staff and the board had an open discussion of the influx of R6 rezoning requests we had been receiving to that point. It was the consensus of the board at that time for staff to direct developers to pursue conditional R6 rezonings rather than standard R6 rezonings. So since that time, that is what I've been relaying to any potential developer in Andrew. Since that meeting, there's been 3 conditional R6 rezoning requests proposed, 2 of which were approved, 1 of which was denied but has since reapplied with our suggestions. The point I wanted the attached spreadsheet to make to the board is to show you the various densities that could be approved in a development under our R6 zoning district. As you can see on the far right column, the R6 zonings already approved span between 2.1 units per acre and 4.1 units per acre. There is a very wide range of overall density of development. I always encourage decision makers to look at the total acreage and the total units. That's the 2 numbers we use to determine overall density. You'll hear that repeated a lot by planners. In other words, the R6 district allows for a 50-foot minimum lot width and a 6,000 square foot minimum lot size. That does not mean that every lot is going to be exactly 50 feet wide and exactly 6,000 square feet. It simply sets up one guardrail for the developer to stay on the road. If there has been a change of heart by the board for what they would like to see, please, staff depends on your guidance. I'm the mouthpiece to the development community, for lack of a better way to say it. I'm usually the first point of contact for anyone interested in buying property for development purposes in Angier. I want to make sure that I don't lead them down the wrong road to a denial of their rezoning. That is not my goal. I know that's not your goal. I would love to tell them the correct path to take from day one, that first phone call. I will say that conditional R6 rezoning denial a couple months ago between Old Boys Creek and Highway 55 caught me off guard. I thought that I had helped the developer develop a very generous conditions list to go along with their application. Their total density, just to give you an idea of where that would fit with our previously approved developments, it would have been number 14 on the density list, so near the bottom at about 2.4 units an acre. So even though they were requesting an R6 zoning, which is typically our high density district, their total lot count proposed, as we could see and hold them to on their plan, was only 2.4 units an acre. That's more like an R15 density, just to give you an idea. So number 1, my first recommendation is let's keep requiring conditional. The reason I like those is because, number 1, there's no gray area. The plan submitted to you is the plan that will be built. We can control the total lot counts and therefore the density. We can control any improvements the board thinks is a must for that particular development, such as turn lanes. We all know is a hot button topic. Perimeter buffers to protect the neighbors, another important one. Before I go any further, does the board have any feedback for the R6 conditional that was denied? Or has anything changed since that December 2020 meeting in terms of the board's direction to me that we're going away from standard and towards conditional R6?
Sean, I have a question, but and I'd like for you to stay there, but I'd like to ask Hans to come up for a second, please, if you don't mind. Sean, last month in our when you were doing your financial stuff, you said we were in good shape financially, and our stuff had increased, correct?
Hans, yes.
I said Hans. I'm sorry, Hans.
Yeah. Well, so financially, we are, one could say, although we have so many projects that we have not done, that technically one could most certainly state that it's questionable.
Okay. The reason I asked you that, do you think that the housings and all the houses have been built in Anger, Catherine's Retreat, and all these subdivisions has helped Anger?
Yes.
Okay. That's all.
It's put a strain there. That's a long conversation we can have for another day.
Okay. Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you.
Good question. All right. Thank you, sir.
One of the nicest subdivisions that we have, to me personally, in Andrew right now is Catherine's Retreat. Houses are going anywhere from, 300, 350, 375, some of them, and every one of them is zoned R6. I don't understand why we want to keep this conditional R6 in place. You said this was done on the 2020 board members? So again, I want part of that. I just don't see the benefit from it at all. And to me, just because you go to R6 or R10, you're going to have fewer houses, but the houses are not going to be that much difference in size. Am I correct about that?
Doesn't determine house size, correct?
Right, it's the lot. So I just don't understand why we have to tell a builder or someone that owns the land, that's owned it all their life or whatever, what they're going to build, how they're going to build it, and the whole 9 yards when it comes to that. And that's what that conditional, to me, represents. I just don't understand it. I don't know why we got there. I don't know why we want to stay there. If we were losing money and it was costing the town money to have R6 houses in town, that'd be a different story. But we're not.
Mr. Mayor, I'd just say something. And Junior, it is a huge benefit to be conditional, because when you go to a straight R6 and the traffic impact analysis says you don't need turn lanes, but the board thinks that road is so congested it's going to need turn lanes, developer is not required to put them in. We are. So then it takes money out of the budget for us to put in turn lanes that a developer could have done in a conditional rezoning.
Well, when someone comes up to us, Jerry, and they propose their stuff to us, don't we have the right then? Even at R6?
Now, straight R6, you have no leverage whatsoever.
None.
Only if the traffic impact analysis requires it.
The board at that time indicated that they needed more leverage to get turn lanes in, more park space, and a variety of different lot sizes. If we just have straight R6, it's going to be incumbent upon the town to make those improvements on our own dollars, which is going to take money away from us on farmers markets or downtown revitalization or a community center. So R6 conditional zonings are very important for Andrew.
And Junior, I have to speak. You were talking about Catherine's Retreat, which was done years ago. That was done, I think, when Coley was here at that time and working with them. Sean, were you part of that development in Chicago? I would say that builder went far and beyond where they had to go in doing what they did over there. And even though it was R6, they did go much further beyond what was required. And somebody spoke about planned communities to live in and wanting something protected in that world. I don't think, like Catherine's Retreat did not have to put in a clubhouse or anything like that to create a community within which to live. I think they probably got more green spaces or open parking bench areas and gazebos, which they didn't have to do. And I think the only thing that I see from the R6 that's changing it is that we're not telling them, we're not telling them what kind of house they can build and what it must look like, as I think what Jerry is saying and Sean is saying, it can make us say that we have to have turning lanes in there, and you do have to have a certain amount of setback or to protect the neighbors that are being built around, that we can tell them we do need a berm back here and we need these bushes. I don't think we're looking at astronomical cost items here. We're not stamping and saying, well, you have to build that kind of house or that size house on that lot. It's basically looking at your visuals, in a sense. But as Jerry pointed out, it is one of the things that we can control is that turning lane that goes in to get you in and out of that subdivision. Because we know we've heard as far as the DOT concerns, they don't think turning lanes are needed anywhere. Every time they do their studies, they come back and say, well, we don't need it. We don't need it. But we can see it as citizens, the need for it, certainly. That's what I think that is.
Well, Mr. Mayor, and I hear every bit of that, and if that's the case, I understand. We've allowed people to talk tonight, and there's probably no one better in this room that has probably dealt with this all their life that can come up here and give us some light on it, if he wouldn't mind, would be Jimmy Johnson, and I'd like to hear Jimmy speak.
With consent of the board, I'll allow that.
I would urge the board, from a landowner perspective, conditionals, and from a board member perspective, that y'all got to raise your hand on. Conditional zoning is the hardest thing you're going to do. I can tell you that. Voting a while ago was easy compared to conditional zoning, because it puts you in a situation where y'all have to basically accept or reject everything that comes before you. And from the development community, please keep in mind that zoning and lot size, from a developer standpoint versus a builder standpoint, is two completely different things. They have nothing to do with each other than your house is either wide and not deep, or it's narrow and deep, okay? That's what you're talking about. Right now, we've got R10 zoning in town that you can do a cluster community, and we've got lots in town that are 3,700 feet in R10 zoning. Okay? We got lots that are 10,000 feet in R6 zoning. Okay? Figure that math out. So each tract of land, it's awful hard, as in like what Sean says, from his perspective, and Sean does a good job. He's doing the very best he can with what he's got. And I'm going to have to pat him on the back, because I called him the day after that one out here, and I said, what happened? And he felt like he was run over by a truck. I can say that. He can't say that, but he said, I don't know. From a developer standpoint, and anybody that knows anything about planning, all anybody can do with any tract of land is what it will do. Okay? Every tract is shaped different. Some tracts may need to be zoned R6, and you may have 2 units per acre. The next one may be R10, and you may end up with 4+ units or 4 units per acre. I venture to say that if he looked at 90% of the R6 zonings, they probably are not 4 units per acre. Probably doesn't have any that are 4 units per acre. There may be 1 or 2. There you go. And that's just because of shape. So don't throw the baby out with the bathwater here. Okay? Yeah. R6 zoning, there's nothing wrong with it. When you get into the conditional side of it, that's when you start monkeying with people's stuff.
Yeah, a lot of folks run into situations in developments where there's a lot of land they can't use.
Every day.
So.
Every day. We take 15% out right off the top. Before we ever even start looking at anything, we say set 15% aside, because you're probably not going to be able to use it. Then take 10% aside for your streets. So you're already taking it out to begin with. And then you go back to, if you're not comfortable with your R6 zoning, with your square footage, with your width, your frontage. Change your ordinance. Okay, go back and revisit your ordinance, but don't hide behind your ordinance, guys, because you're putting yourself in an awful bad situation. And by conditional zoning, you're putting a lot of pressure on your man over here to try to predict how y'all are going to vote, and that's exactly what he did, right? And what he thought was a good planning deal. And it made sense, and I'm sure that's probably why they probably came to him and might have wanted more units. I will say I think you're doing a bad injustice to your homeowner or your landowners in the town, because you are adversely reflecting or adversely putting a price on their property. You are taking away the value of their property. When you start putting conditions, if you say you can't do but X number of lots on it, nobody really knows until you start really getting deep into the planning. And a good planner is going to take what he's got or she has. They're going to take the sheet of paper. They're going to work with what the ordinance says, and they're going to look at what the maximum is, and then they're going to start trimming back from there. They start out taking away property to begin with, because you got to take some away, because you're not going to use every foot of it. It don't happen that way. And then you start seeing what works. And if it's not going to fit, it's not going to fit. And, it ain't like you could just jam it in there. It doesn't happen that way. So the conditional zoning puts another box over that. It says, well, okay, you can only have 22 lots. Well, when you really get deep into it, you may have enough for 23 sites. And anybody that can do any math today can figure that if a person, if you've got a widow lady, okay, and I work with them every day, not picking on widow women, but you pick on, you say you've got a widow lady here that's got a farm that she's been paying on, and now all of a sudden you're saying, well, okay, you can only get 22 lots, you can't get 23, and in the raw stage in today's market, that's going to cost that lady $40,000. That's before the infrastructure's put in. Now, this is at the raw stage. I'm not talking about finished product. Now, if y'all want to look that lady in the eye and tell her it's going to cost her $40,000, you can do it. I sat on this board for 12 years. I don't want to vote that way. And I just think you're putting yourself in a bad box, and you're putting your man Sean over here in an awful bad situation, because all he can do is make suggestions, and then when somebody like me or somebody else comes up here representing someone, you're saying, okay, we're doing what you're saying. We're trying to play fair here. And if you want 26 lots versus 27 lots, your deal's shot down.
Well, Jimmy, what do you say about what the manager said when it comes to, because of, what he's saying, if we stick with this, go back to the way it used to be, if you want to build something and you really need a turning lane, and it's going to cost the town to. What do you say about that?
DOT sets turning lanes, and DOT ain't easy to get out of turning lanes. I can tell you that.
Not on town streets, though.
No, but how many town streets? I'm talking about the side streets need a turning lane, realistically. Name one. I rest my case. Town streets, 55, 210, they're going to zap you. When I built my place, I had to back off I argued I had to back my stuff back because of, potential road widening. And I did it.
But I'd also say NCDOT does not require turn lanes when they should be. I mean, there's cases where 55 is backed up where the school is. Should have been turn lanes there, and they're not. And now Andrew's got to deal with the traffic during the morning and in the afternoon. So conditional zonings give you leverage to require them when they're not required by the TIA or NCDOT.
If the board wants leverage, do it. If that's what you want. If you want leverage. If that's what you're looking for, leverage, I don't like Mr. Vincent's word leverage.
Well,
because that's basically saying you do this or go do somewhere else.
Well,
and that's what leverage is.
A leverage to me is, what is your vision of what you want Andrew to be when someone like Mr. Johnson builds a subdivision? Do you want it to be safe, walkable, and you want people to turn in and turn out and be safe and no accidents? That's what I mean by leverage. Is your vision of what you want Andrew to be in the future.
Jimmy, wouldn't you think that our customers, so to speak, our homeowners will be changing over the years? Right now, there seem to be a lot of young people coming down from Wake County. As the amenities are developed, wouldn't you think that the lot size, preferred lot size, would maybe go up?
I can't answer that. Look at what's selling. That's going to be different next year than it is this year. I can just tell you that the young people don't want a big yard to mow. They'd rather get the car washed,
That's
go
right.
play golf, and go to a ball game or go bowling. They're not interested in what we like to do. They don't want to mow a 3/4 acre lot, Jill. They don't want to do that. They're doing something else. But the market will tell you that. But I can't make that decision. But the market will drive that. But if you keep putting conditions on your R6 stuff, guess what's going to happen? People are going to change and they're going to do R10. And Sean, correct me, they're going to do the cluster deal. And instead of having 6,000 square foot lots, you're going to have 3,900 square foot lots. Right or wrong?
Well, the density could still be higher than 6.
Okay.
So I mean, and I don't mean to get on my soapbox, but we're messing with people's, and sometimes it's life-changing events for somebody that's got a tract of land that they've been paying tax on for 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 years. And I know staff doesn't agree with me, and that's okay. I mean, we've all got our opinions, but I'm going to venture to say that most of the mistakes that have been made about turning lanes in our town have been made here. They hadn't been made at planning somewhere else. They've been made when they got to the town board. And I'm just going to say that and get it out here. That's nothing new. That's been going on for a while. So,
okay.
But don't get lot size and buildings confused. They're two different issues, guys. They're two complete different issues. It's the shape of the building that is dealt with in a lot. It's a front entry. Your national builders want front entry garages. That's so people can't put junk in the backyard. Plain and simple. You can talk to any national builder. That's what they're going to tell you. And local builders like side entry garages. It's because that's what we're used to. We don't want everybody looking in our garage. And I'm not a builder, so I can say that. I'm not a builder. So, but anyway, I appreciate your time. And
Jimmy, thank you so much.
Be real careful on conditional zoning, guys. Very careful if you could.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Anything further from the board? Is there any action that you want to take? Not, we'll move on to number C.
Whether it's business as usual in terms of our stance to the development community, or are we opening it back up to not necessarily require conditional zoning for R6? That's what I need to know.
Basically, Sean, you were just guiding them down that path. I mean, we didn't make any choices. Nobody voted here to say we're not going to take anything but R6s, and
Well, that
none
was
of
the
that.
consensus of the board.
No, that was the consensus.
Well, we basically
before you
said
came
we
on
would
the
rather.
board, yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean,
That's what I
my understanding was you were just leading them that way, and I don't understand why you wouldn't still continue to lead them that way.
Okay.
That's
Of course,
my
they still have
point.
the right to choose anything.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
we're not forcing them to do any of it.
Would an R8 help out in this situation?
Yep. Like Jimmy mentioned, you can tweak the minimum lot sizes and lot widths for our R6 zoning district if we wanted to go that direction. Again, if you look at the spreadsheet, the densities are all over the place.
Yeah.
Not necessarily dependent on zoning district.
And I don't think we're talking about the size of the lot here at all. I mean, it's not that. The question is, do I still want to do an R10 and don't want to put in turning lanes, sidewalks, and the things that need to go with that space. So I'm confused because, I mean, all we've done here a little bit is to help people in developments where homes were right up against the developments. They came in and spoke and said, could you please ask them to put a berm in here and screen this? And we did, because if I was living there, I'd want those things done for me. But that's what happens with the conditional. We can ask them to do those things. They are not required to do it.
And with R6, we can't ask them to do that, right?
No. I mean,
right, we can't enforce that.
No.
It's just conditional.
Right.
Yeah.
But we've agreed to a couple of developments.
We can ask them to do it.
That's right.
And we have the right to vote yes or no to let them do it.
No, they can't promise us. We can't
Well,
ask
I'm just
them.
saying, we can ask, and from what I'm hearing a while ago, from what the town manager's saying versus what Jimmy's saying, you know, again, how many side streets in Andrew on Willow Street, for example, we're going to need turning lanes. If we need turning lanes, it's going to be off 55 and 210. Now, why the school and the veterinary clinic never had turning lanes, I agree with Jimmy. I think that was done in here versus what should have been done, if you want to get to the nuts and bolts of it.
DOT.
But yeah, I think if the way the traffic flow is now, anybody's going to build anything with any size on 55 and 210 is going to have a turning lane. And I don't think that we should be making them put a turning lane in. And by what Mr. Vincent's saying, that's the only leverage we've got. I think DOT will take care of that for us.
It's not the only leverage.
Yes.
That is just one of the items, Junior. Like I said,
it's not just the turning lane.
It's not-
other things.
There
not
was
just
I think there was an example, and Sean can correct me, but I think it was in 2020 where it was a straight R6. NCDOT indicated that turn lanes were not required. And the developer, and you guys asked the developer, would he put in turn lanes? And he said, if the TIA suggests it, recommends it, and it didn't. And
Traffic
you knew that
analysis.
street was going to be congested at one time, or it already is now, and you had no, sorry, Jimmy, but leverage to require him to put in those turn lanes.
And we have a mess now, correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
What are you talking about?
See, if I'm right, isn't it the charter school?
Well, one was a charter school, but this was
That was an
actually, this was
R6.
a subdivision also where it was across the street, townhome and single family.
Yes.
You had no,
Yes.
sorry, leverage to
Kennebec
require
Crossing.
that.
Kennebec
Kennebec
Crossing,
Crossing.
right
There
beside
you
the
go.
Yeah.
What you're trying to do right now is saying that you want the town to be able to do it, but the town didn't do anything then. The town could have requested it. They could have mandated.
But
I asked the developer that question.
we did not have the consensus recommendation to Sean to use conditional zoning at that point.
They could have denied it and made him reapply, absolutely.
I asked the developer how he got by without doing it. I asked him point blank, because I've sold him multiple tracks. He said the board allowed him to do it without.
And the question came up from the board after it was approved, how can we prevent this in the future? And their answer was conditional rezonings.
Right.
That was the example.
Okay. Is there any action desired by the board on item 5B? If not, we'll move on.
Well, I just want to say one thing. I think the action that the, maybe I shouldn't say that, but I think the, when this, you know, the town took care of some of these issues at the voting polls.
Okay, moving on to C then. Of what? Okay.
Okay, so one of the developments that come before the planning board, Ennis Road, the size of it right now, okay, based on the drawings, did not have a required turning lane. Even now, without a development there, the traffic on Ennis coming onto Old Bowie's Creek is atrocious. You cannot get home, you cannot get out onto 55s to go to work the way it is now. So when we looked at it, and there was no required, if the conditioning zoning was not there, they were not required to put a turn lane in there. That bypass is coming up behind Ennis Road. You're going to get more traffic coming down Ennis Road. Those people have a right to get in, get out of that development on that road, not just on 55. That's why we have the conditional zoning. So that you have the ability to sit there and say, you know what, that's a good idea. Because people came up and said they know how the traffic is now, they know how it's going to be in the future, based on what it's going to entail with people living there, plus the bypass. So you have to take all those things into consideration and not rely on the town to have to pay for that in the future, because that is going to be coming out of the revenue, out of the budget. So, you know, I would just like to say that that's one of the reasons why I think you really need to keep the conditional zoning. Because that's why you have us. That's why we have you. So that you can look at all of these things to make your decisions. That you're not just looking at a drawing and saying, oh, that looks so pretty, I think we ought to do it. Because we need more homes in Andrew.
Right.
Let's look at everybody who is living here now and who we want to have look in the future. And yes, we do have a lot of young people coming in, but hey, you know, old lady standing here, you know, there are still people that want to come and have a good community life and have a place to go and live where they can have a dog or two or three. Or, you know, and that's going to need, and have 2, 3, 4 children that they want to send out in the backyard to play. Because they've come home from a long, hard day from work, and they don't want to get into the car and drive down to the park so their kids can play. These are all things we've got to look at. There are still people out there, folks, that want to have a play, you know, swing set in their own backyard and not have somebody tell them that they can't.
Right. As a leader of the planning board, appreciate your comments. Okay.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion. I'd like to get this on record, if you don't mind. I'd like to make a motion that, and I'm going to read here, as December 1st, 2020, the Board of Commissioners meeting staff and board participated in a discussion regarding recent approved developments in Andrew as to relates to the zoning district's overall development density. At the conclusion of that discussion, it was the consensus of the board to direct staff to disencourage potential developers for submitting standard R6 rezoning requests and direct them towards conditional R6 rezonings. I'd like to make a motion tonight that we go back to the regular R6 zonings without the conditional.
Is there any discussion on that? Okay, the motion is that we no longer use conditional zoning, right? In R6. Then we go back to just straight R6. You ready to vote?
Sure.
All in favor of that motion, please raise your right hand. All against? And one, oh, okay. So the motion fails. Thank you for bringing it to our attention. Okay. Item 5C, code enforcement on weekends.
I believe this is a topic brought to Jerry's attention and then to mine regarding some Saturday work by the code enforcement officer. I would just like to hear from the board what the goal to be accomplished on Saturday is different from Monday through Friday.
Yeah, I'm the one that brought that to Jerry's attention with a list of other things that I thought that we could do better here in town. And part of that list was that, Sean, on the weekends when the people that live here are here, we have to see car washes popping up everywhere with the water and the soap suds and everything running down the streets. We have people sitting out here in the parking lot out here carving cantaloupes, pineapples that probably don't have permits to do so. People putting up what I call pop-up trailers selling food without permits, probably without health department permits and so forth. And you know, y'all don't see that because you're not here. And I think if we had a code enforcement officer here on the weekends, that we could eliminate a lot of that, and even yard sales without the proper process to have them.
I did speak to Shannon about that, and he's certainly willing to work an occasional Saturday upon request. I just wanted to make sure the board and the public is aware that our code enforcement officer has very limited physical enforcement authority. He issues civil citations. Right, so we have a 10-day waiting period before we can issue our first civil fine. So even if you were to stumble upon a violation on a Saturday, he goes back to his office, drafts a letter, puts it in the mail, waits 10 days before he can then physically enforce or fine.
Which they may no longer be doing what they were cited for.
Which compliance could have been reached by then anyway. I just want to make sure it's not like Shannon's going to go steal your watermelons and say, get out of here if you're selling cider.
Or are we looking at this wrong? Are we looking at this wrong, Sean? Is there anything the police department can do to help us with this stuff?
I certainly don't want to speak for them. We have some town codes that the police do have the right to enforce. I'm not sure that they can physically confiscate items that are being sold illegally or shut down a car wash that you think is causing a public nuisance. I think they still have to follow the order of procedures laid out in the code, even if they are a police officer.
The distinction between civil and criminal issues.
Right. Unless they're committing a criminal offense, then they'll step in. Just wanted to make that distinction.
Any further discussion on this?
Well, I don't think I'm the only one that sees this, am I?
No, you're not the only one. I've had complaints with people just putting their, like you said, goods. It's almost like a portable flea market. They're able to go anywhere and everywhere around town. And half the time when they leave, when they get there, it's clean. When they leave their trash.
And you don't think, Sean, that if Shannon was working and approached those people and asked them, I don't know what he can and can't ask, but if he asked them, they have a permit or whatever, do you think that would, and they know they didn't, not knowing that he's going to turn around and call the police in the next 5 minutes, you think that would deter it?
I think you could certainly help.
Yeah.
I just wanted to let everybody know he can't physically stop them if they
Okay.
say, get out of here, I'm doing it anyway. You know what I mean?
But within your present setup, could you ask him to go on weekends and make spot?
I can certainly ask him to flex his time and work an occasional Saturday, absolutely.
Yeah,
Would
maybe
that
just
help?
one Saturday a month.
It definitely would be a deterrent. So I agree with that.
That makes sense.
Sean, if you could make that, one time out of the month. Okay. If he could still, and he doesn't even have to do it all day. It's really something, if it's going to occur, it's going to occur in the morning from like 9 o'clock to noon. And if he could find a way to just pop that in there. Once they know you're watching and you're out and about, that makes a change.
Yep.
Okay, we can do that.
Okay. Good enough. Number 5D, Town of Angel remote policy. This was passed when, Jerry? I think January, I believe it was, yeah. February. Okay. Thank you, sir.
You're saying there, Mayor, are you talking about people doing the Zoom calls? Is that what this is about?
As I understand the remote policy, it arose particularly out of the pandemic situation. And that doesn't mean the way it's written, I think, that it wouldn't apply other times. Obviously, commissioners have family trips or illnesses in the family and stuff like that. So that was the reason that it was passed. So what are the issues that need to be looked at?
Well, you know, I know it has been brought up here by some people that I was doing some Zoom calls. There's no secret I have taken a new position after 30-some years in Roanoke, Virginia, and I'm working up there during the week, and I'm coming home on the weekends. And I had been coming to every meeting we had until a certain time. But I'll put Mr. Coates in the same boat. He's got a job in Raleigh where if it comes down to it, his job comes first, and I understand that. I don't think that, but I also made a promise to my wife and my boss the other day that I will be at all the meetings. But I can tell you right now, if I have someone fall 5 stories, I'll be on the job site. But I don't think we should say that it's only for COVID. I think if that's what it was designed for, I think it should be anytime, any reason. You can't be here for some kind of an emergency or something, and you get your proper notice.
It's a temporary sort of thing.
24 hours, unless it's a due emergency. I don't think we should. I think that's the way it should be written, and I think that's the way policy we should go on. Now, if someone is abusing that, and we obviously don't want a board of commissioner up here that don't show up for a year and does Zoom calls for 25 times a year. It's not what the people wants, but there's times where you can't be here, and I don't think we should be held liable because it's not a full-time job.
And I believe, Mr. Mayor, the two issues were Board of Adjustment meetings and closed sessions. I believe closed sessions.
Yeah, the two big issues. The two big issues with remote participation really are closed sessions and quasi-judicial proceedings. A lot of boards do have a remote participation policy for regular meetings. But there are special considerations that come into play, particularly with quasi-judicial proceedings, and that is the ability to see and hear all of the evidence.
Look at the people testifying.
Right. It is not per se illegal or against the law to have remote participation. It's been upheld previously to have a board member participate remotely in quasi-judicial proceedings. It really is discretion of the board and whether to allow it or not, taking into account the considerations of wanting to have everyone have the same access to the same information, including, you're sometimes weighing credibility and weighing witness testimony, and it's usually helpful to be in person to do that. But it is certainly within the discretion of the board to allow it if the board chooses to do so. And the issue with closed sessions, there's nothing inherently wrong or contrary to law about allowing remote participation in closed sessions, but there are considerations that come into play with, who may have access or who may be in the room, but those are all issues that can be addressed, and, as long as the board is willing to allow that, then there's really no prohibition against it. It's the will of the board. Right.
Well, Dan, I think the mayor had asked you to research that, and Jerry too, I think, and it sounds like you've done so. And the mayor has a lot on his plate. And I think that, I'm 56 years old, and I think anybody my age or older is at the point in their life they don't like we're getting tired of being told by the government and everything what we have to do. And if it's not against the law, and the mayor has confirmed that we have all the information that you're talking about. The system that we paid to be in this building, if it's working correctly, we should be able to do everything you talked about a while ago if it's done right. If for any reason it's not, the mayor has the authority to stop it. If we don't have the paperwork given to us, if one of us has to be out, you can stop it. But to sit here and say you cannot do it, you're creating rules and laws that's not out there, and I don't think that we should be held to those standards. I think if it's a board decision, and I think how I'm going to vote, but I think that as long as the mayor says it's fine, we've got all the information we need, then we should be able to do it in a closed session. And what was the other one?
Quasi-judicial.
The other one. So. That's my personal opinion.
Keep in mind that the law provides that if you are unexcused, all of your votes will be considered in favor of a particular item that comes up.
So I guess what you're trying to say there, Mayor, if for some reason, and I'll pick anybody, you say, Jim, you can't participate in this, then all Jim's vote's going to be a yes.
That's correct.
He might not have wanted it to be a yes. It could have been a no if he could have participated.
That's would be if the participation becomes remote. If you're not allowed remote at the start of a quasi-judicial hearing, you just wouldn't be counted towards a quorum. But
Correct. Okay. Is there any action the board would like to take on 5D?
I would like to make the motion that we could, number one, do the closed sessions. That was the two concerns, and the quad, and with your permission, basically, because at the end of the day, it falls on you whether or not you say we have the stuff and you accept us doing it.
Well,
correct?
The ordinance, provides that I need to be notified, so I would just follow that.
Yeah.
Jerry, the policy as it states right now, we're essentially doing the same thing that Mr. Price is asking, right?
Right now, it prohibits it. So he's asking you to allow it to happen.
In closed session and quasi-judicial.
That's correct.
I think, the difference is right now we are not doing closed sessions and we're not doing.
That's the only distinction.
The quasi-judicial differences.
Okay.
Having been around the law for a long time, I'm a little concerned that there might be some challenges to our proceedings if people came in remotely to a quasi-judicial.
Well, are people not, I haven't been on that end of it long enough myself. Do they not come in sometimes with handouts for that meeting at that moment, which we would not have any access to. I can't get it. I can't have it.
I understand that, but Alan, also understand if we say no tonight and they don't allow you to do it, your vote's automatic yes, whether or not you wanted to vote no for it. You'd have to answer why you voted yes.
If you come in remotely, yeah.
Well, yes, and it would be stated that it is that way. And listen, we've seen that play for you and play against you. But I think it would. I don't think I would be questioned as to why I voted yes. I didn't vote yes because by law it went down as a yes, but I was not there and did not physically vote yes to it. I'm not expressing a preference one way or the other. I'm just saying,
quasi-judicial evokes suggestion that if you had a jury trial and only a couple of the jurors were there and the rest were remote, so the point of quasi-judicial is that the participants in the hearing board need to take into account the testimony of the witnesses, be able to look them in the eye, and see what's going on. So there are arguments against that, but it's up to the board.
Well, Mr. Mayor, I will say this after thinking about that a little more. I kind of agree with you on that, but I don't think, because on the quad, you have the plan. Isn't that where the planning board's also on a part of it?
It would be like the Board of Adjustment.
Board of Adjustment, not the planning board.
The quad's still us.
Quasi, yeah.
There are conceivably matters that could come before this board as a quasi-judicial proceeding, but typically, when we're talking quasi-judicial, the typical process would be the Board of Adjustment,
which would be the planning board and members and stuff.
I believe the Board of Adjustment is made up of this board plus two from the
planning board members, right?
But okay, if we did away with that portion of it, I think there's times where we have a closed session, because that could be personnel, it could be anything. I don't think that's that big a deal on that, personally. If you say, okay, you can't do the other, but you can do closed sessions, I would agree with that.
And there again, as you said there, I get, Bob, that total thing about looking your jury, your members in the eye. And there again, it would totally be, it's really a case-by-case basis anyway. We can choose to allow it or not allow it if we feel there's a reason. I guess it still would go up for vote as to whether or not we would excuse that person from the meeting or not.
Well, it's stated in the ordinance that there are two exceptions, right, Dan?
What are the two exceptions?
The quasi-judicial and closed session.
I don't recall how our ordinance currently reads.
I believe it sets those out.
If that's what we have in place currently, then yeah.
Yes.
And the concerns are less important. I mean, it's up to the board to weigh the value of the concerns, but there are more issues at play with the quasi judicial proceeding than there are with the closed session.
And I think, I'm playing devil's advocate, Junior. I mean, as much as we all know what we should and should not do, and I'm not saying I'm not accusing anybody of anything, but we really don't have any control in FaceTime or Zooming a closed session. We can't guarantee who is in earshot, in that home, in that our apartment, wherever. And it's a slippery slope there for that. And I'm not accusing anybody of anything. I'm just saying, because I have occasionally had to go. I did one Zoom where I went away to another office, but I assumed nobody was hearing me. That was my assumption. So I see the validity and the validation here between both closed session and the quasi judicial.
One thing I can throw out there, it doesn't have to be an all or nothing proposition. You can allow the board to vote on whether to allow remote participation depending on the issue. So if it's a particularly sensitive closed session issue, the board could say, we really want to not allow remote participation for this issue. Or if it's something that is not as sensitive, you could vote accordingly.
At the time of the hearing.
Right. You would draft your remote participation policy to require a vote at the time of whether to allow participation remotely.
Okay. Would it make sense then to refer this to Dan to let him word some possibilities?
But is that direction you want to go in?
Yeah, is the idea that we want to allow remote participation in closed sessions by majority vote, but not quasi-judicial, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the consensus?
Yep.
All right. I can bring back a proposal at the next meeting.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right. Speaking of closed sessions, under General Statute, Chapter 143-318.11, parens 3, attorney-client privilege, the board respectfully asks those present to give us an opportunity to do a closed session. Is there a motion that we adjourn for 5 minutes and then go into closed session?
I make a motion that we adjourn and go into closed session in 5 minutes.
All in favor, raise your hand. Okay, that's what we'll do then.